welcome to this edition of the Startup Central. I'm Nayantara Rai. This is the only show of its kind on Indian television dedicated, of course, to startups, innovation, technology, entrepreneurship. Basically, if it falls under the aegis of the new economy, it's going to be here on your favorite channel, ET Now, at sharp 6 p.m. every day. Like all the stakeholders of the community that we get on this show, the team that puts the show together, the Startup Central team, thrives on constructive criticism. If you don't tell us, who's going to tell us, and how will we reach the next level? So keep those emails coming in. Our email address right on top, suc@etnow.tv. Tell us how to do things differently, what you want to see on the show, what you'd like us to remove from the show. The whole shebang. We want to keep hearing from you. Today on Startup Central, we are focusing on fintech. Why did we choose fintech today? Well, because UPI, of course, created the fintech boom in the country, and UPI has crossed yet another very important milestone. Yes, UPI showed a lot of resilience during COVID. It did suffer, like all payments, like consumerism took a hit, lockdown, all of that, but it still showed so much resilience. And now it has emerged from the second wave of coronavirus by breaking a new record. According to the data that has been put up on the website of the Reserve Bank of India, UPI has registered 2.8 billion transactions in the month of June. That's right, 280 crore transactions. That's the number of transactions. That's a new record. But UPI has also created history by breaking yet another record, and that is in the transaction value. So how much was transacted on UPI in the month of June? Well, 5,47,000 crore rupees in the month of June. 5,47,373 crores, if I'm going to be completely precise. It's big numbers there. And now I'm going to invite a co-founder of Unicorn, a co-founder of a company that has been doing extremely well when it comes to the payments business, B2B business. I'm talking about Razorpay. Shashank, the co-founder, joining us live on this edition of Startup Central. Shashank, it's always a pleasure talking to you or your co-founder, Harshil. We love having you on the show. Today we're talking about UPI. So when you look at this data which has come out and you see UPI showing this kind of resilience as it has through the entire pandemic, of course it had to take a hit, but it showed a lot of resilience. But when you look at these kind of numbers, one has to ask, has UPI plateaued out? Has it anywhere near plateauing out, or are we just scratching the surface?
Oh, our belief is absolutely that UPI is nowhere near to plateauing out at this stage, right? In fact, pandemic has pushed a lot of offline businesses towards digital adoption and digital payments that is there, right? And we kind of see that in the growth of the numbers that are happening here. On our platform itself, we have seen UPI growing more than 200% in past 1 year, right? And a lot of that growth is actually driven by tier 2 and tier 3 cities. So you wouldn't believe it, right? But more than 50% of UPI payments for our platform is actually happening in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, which kind of talks about that it's not just a story of tier 1 cities or metros, right? It's a story being driven by real businesses on the ground, even in tier 2, tier 3 cities and beyond. And I think it's only going to expand, right? We are just scratching the surface of digital payments in these regions of the country, and it's only going to expand further.
I did interview Praveena Rai, the COO of NPCI. That was last month. Last month when UPI, unlike all other payment forms, did show a lot of resilience. And that time she said the priority would also be to go beyond the smartphone category, where they would look at feature phones, where they would have to go outside of the bigger towns because the penetration is nowhere where it can be. Shashank, give us an idea. How is it that India can improve UPI's penetration by not using smartphones?
I'll tell you what, right? Smartphone has been the one which has been driving the success story till date, but there's a lot of things in store, right? Feature phones is definitely a big one because, still like almost 40 to 50% of India is not on smartphone that is there, right? So anything absolutely that we do around feature phones will see us strive further in the country that is there. I'll tell you the second thing that is there, right? We still haven't seen credit coming on UPI in a big way, and there's a huge potential there, right? There's a big demand for credit in the country among all segments of society, and the penetration of UPI kind of sets it up, right, as the best platform for driving for credit for the next set of consumers and businesses that are there in the country, right? And we are seeing a lot of experiments happening around that. It'll start to take off as businesses come back, pandemic impact lessons, right, and more people go out, right? So as and when that happens over the next couple of years, we'll see huge adoption of credit happening in the country over UPI, and that will again drive further growth among newer segments of society, while at the same time among the same segments, right, they'll use UPI more and more compared to any other payment instrument because of the benefit that they'll start getting out of it.
So what can be the next big moment for UPI? We've talked about, for example, insurance. We've heard about how credit on UPI has to take off, but it hasn't happened as yet.
Of course, these are the future potential, right? And these take time. I mean, the smartphone story itself is actually still panning out, right? And we are still seeing amazing growth on UPI happening. I'll tell you what would be happening immediately in like next 6 to 9 months, right? Is something that we have been working on with a lot of enthusiasm. Is the UPI autopay or recurring payments on UPI, right? See, India as a country, is slowly opening up to subscription payments and recurring payments in a big way. There's a whole movement around subscription economy, around creator economy, around gig economy, all of whom will benefit a lot from UPI autopay solutions, right? And NPCI has done a great job of building it out and launching it in the past few months, and the traction on that is slowly starting to pick up. Very early days, but we are really kicked about that what we'll see in next 6 months and how it will pan out. And even the growth that is happening, there's a lot of stories behind it. These are businesses, right? These are businesses or freelancers who used to just deal in cash, but now they're actually taking and accepting UPI as a payment method in every interaction. For me personally, right? Every interaction that I have with anyone, right? Be it, let's say, a plumber or a restaurant, right? Anywhere else, like all of those payments have converted to UPI, right? And there's clear benefits that people call out, especially during pandemic times when you don't want to handle cash, as to how easy it is, how simple it is, right? And the things that I'm talking about around recurring payments, around credit, and around feature phones, these will just add to the success story of UPI and help take it a notch higher than it's already where it is at.
Now, you're primarily in the B2B field. So I want to ask you this question. What we at ET Now did was we compared the data on the RBI website from the month of March when, the second wave, when things were far more normal, the lockdowns hadn't really begun, with June. So UPI, of course, registered a growth, 8.4%. RTGS down nearly 22%, NEF down nearly 32%, credit cards down 9.6%, debit cards down nearly 27%, IMPS down about 14%. But at the same time, like we said, UPI has gained the number of transactions and the transaction values. You're talking about the small businesses that are moving towards UPI, but is there a case where even the larger businesses are doing more activities on UPI?
Yeah, the success story is definitely all around, right? We have seen increase in UPI transactions across all sectors, be it large companies or small companies, that is there, right? Even for larger companies, even the adoption of UPI among the consumer base, especially for people in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, it just makes logical sense to drive, help accept it and do more activities over it. And we have seen such innovative solutions coming up on UPI, right? We have seen, IPO payments happening there. We have seen housing payments happening there. So even for larger companies, for government, it makes a lot of sense to take up the newer use cases that are coming up and try and handle that via UPI. And I'll tell you a simple story, right? Like my own father, who used to go and pay his electricity bill at the utility bill office, is now able to simply make it via UPI on the electricity bill bill that comes out, right? So even the utility bills that are coming out, right, have a QR code which you can scan via UPI and make a payment, right? So even for these large-scale utility companies or enterprise companies, we are seeing amazing new use cases coming up where UPI is really doing well. But what really makes us happy is to actually see the traction that it is driving for SMEs in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, because we have to understand a lot of large companies have resources and they are able to get through these things, right? But for SMEs, it's a real struggle to ensure that they get their payments on time in their bank account, and UPI solves that pain point unlike anything, right? And we have seen enterprises do that adoption over the last few years. But adoption on SMEs and adoption on consumers in tier 2 and tier 3 cities in last few months and last year particularly has been really amazing. And it kind of shows the resilience that UPI has in this period and the benefits it is giving towards a digital India.
Okay. With that, Shashank, I'd like to thank you for taking the time out for joining us here. We wanted to have you on the show simply because UPI has scaled a new record. You've given us a little sneak peek of what we can expect in the times to come, how UPI is going to be used in all kinds of new innovations for fintech.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Nanda.
This is a fintech special that we are having on Startup Central today. Our next guest is hoping to disrupt the banking industry as we know it. He is a fintech serial entrepreneur, if you want to call him that. He's founded Citrus Pay, sold it to PayU, was the big boss at PayU, and is now started a new venture, Jupiter, and has a new bank. You guessed my guest. It is Jitendra Gupta who is joining us from the beautiful orchards at Dalhousie, clearly giving a new spin to WFH. Yes, I am rather jealous of your setting, Jitendra, but thanks so much for joining us here on Startup Central. Pleasure to have you here. It's been a week, exact week since the launch. So first tell our viewers, what is this new bank all about, and how are you planning or hoping to disrupt banking as we know it?
So that's a great question, and Tara, I think the press has made this whole a startup of ours as a new terminology, which is neobank. But the way I see is that how do we bring a digital banking experience to the consumers, and in that further today, like one of the biggest problem when we saw in the banking was that. There were consumers who are like 18 and the consumers who are 60 to 70 years, but the banking experience is exactly same. Well, the way they experience the app in general in their life is very, very different. Their expectations are different. So we thought that it makes sense to introduce a banking experience which is more personalized, more contextual for the target group, which is typically 22, 23-year-old to 35-year-old. And that's the experience which we're bringing for the consumers. Now, what is different in this? The way I see the thing which is different is that we are sort of launching this as more of a finance app rather than just a pure storage of money container, which typically banks provide. And what that means is that you would be able to see all your finances at one place, as well as you would be able to get all the financial insights and goals from us, and effectively our app would be acting as a financial coach for the consumers. So that's the biggest difference which we are bringing to the table.
Can you tell me, it's been a week since the launch. I believe you've done an acquisition as well. What has the week been since the launch?
I must say it was a crazy week. So we launched on 24th of June. And today when we see our waitlist number, people who have showed interest in signing up to Jupiter app has crossed 60,000 plus within such a short span. but we rolled out invites to 1,000 users first, and gathering their feedback and making the changes as we are receiving the feedback. And our philosophy from day one has been that let's co-create the banking experience which meets consumers' expectation, rather than creating a product in an office and then pushing it down to the consumers, irrespective whether they like it or not. So we have been taking a very, very measured approach towards our launch that way. Fortunately, we have received very raving reviews so far, so that keeps us going. The initial consumers are really loving our offering. They've personally sent us over WhatsApp, Telegram channels, and emails very, very encouraging feedback. So we are very thrilled to roll out to the next set of users. So hopefully in this week we should be rolling out our offering to another 5 to 10,000 users out of our wait list.
Okay, so you've got a wait list of almost 60,000 users that want to use this fintech service. But Jiten, you've told me a little bit of what the neobank or how you're hoping to do differently. But can you, in layman terms, very simply explain to our viewers that what all is going to be possible with Jupiter? Because at the end of the day, you're also saying it's not just a payment app. It's not where you store money.
That's right. So, the way I look at banking today, the best part about banking is that they provide the breadth of financial products. While in consumer fintech industries, you look at that fintechs do one product and they do it like pretty deep. And consumers are still tuned on to banking because of the breadth of the financial services which banks provide. And that's the aspiration which we have, where we want to provide the breadth of the financial services products on this app. So it will have all the things right from your bank account. You will have ability to view all your other bank accounts as well. You can actually use any account for transfers. You would be able to drive saving goals, saving pots, and all of that. You will get overdraft lines from us. You will get any kind of lending needs fulfilled by us. And most important, we are providing a customer service which consumers really want, which is they are used to service which is equivalent, which is service which is provided by Amazon or Swiggy in India. And I think that is what the experience which we are providing to Indian consumers in banking, which is on chat, everything instant. The benefit of doubt will be given to the consumer, and service won't depend on your balances. So irrespective of your balance, you'll get a great service from us.
Okay, so you're not going to discriminate who gets better services. So it's not like those who are richer will get a personalized relationship manager, this, that, and the other. But the other thing I want to ask you is that you talked a bit about it. So you will offer select products to your customers.
That's right, Nayantara, because our belief is that average consumer does not consume the 350 products offered by the banks. And since we are going after a very, very targeted group, or the targeted consumer segments, where they have a very, very specific needs around financial products, so we will be offering products which are very relevant for them in terms of lending, deposits, investments, and insurance.
So let me ask you this other question, Jiten. And I want to understand from you what a bank is going to look like, let's say 10 years from now. You're talking to me today about Jupiter, the app. If you were to look at the old legacy banks, you got Kotak, which is trying to change with 811. You got SBI, for example, which is talking so much about YONO and putting investments in. On the other side, we have you. We have your friend Ashni Grover of BharatPay. You've been on his board as well, who's dreaming of India's first digital age bank. If you were to tell us what a bank will look like 10 years from now, what is that?
So I think if you ask me what would be an ideal bank versus what are the current banks look like, I would actually divide my answers both ways. So So ideal bank would look like, in my view, is who is a true day-to-day finance app for the consumer rather than just storage of the money for the consumer. And I think that's the ideal bank I would consider from a consumer standpoint. Today, if you look at like the consumer's expectation from banks versus how banks' expectation from consumers, there is a counterintuitive forces working. So banks want more idle balances from the consumers, and consumers want more return on their money. And I think they are so counterintuitive that both parties try to optimize it other way, and in return both parties are unhappy with each other. So from my perspective, we want to make a bank which is not just storage of money or idle balances, but have a view of overall finances of the consumer and help them become financially disciplined and achieve their financial goals. So that's the ideal bank. Now, what the current banks would look like if they don't reinvent themselves, I think the current banks would become simply storage of money, in my view, where there will be many fintech apps which will come in, who would be the real front ends of these banks. And consumers would not like to deal directly with these banks other than keeping their money. And that's if you look at like PhonePe or GPay, like for payment transactions, now the consumers do not go to banks interfaces directly now. They go to PhonePe or GPay or Paytm and all of these apps to do their payment transaction on a day-to-day basis. So effectively for day-to-day payments, we are already seeing banks getting disintermediated by all these couple of entities. And I think this is same going to happen in all other financial products if banks do not reinvent themselves.
But it is still, it's still a little difficult to imagine the world without the likes of the ICICI, HDFCs, Kotaks, IndusInd, all of that. So is there, what I'm also trying to get at is that in 10 years from now, 15 years from now, how will those banks who are also trying to reinvent themselves, to be fair, and there are, entrepreneurs like you, there are fintech companies, how will all of you survive together?
So I'll give you a couple of data points. So 10 years back on NASDAQ, if you look at the biggest market cap companies, out of the 10 companies, you'll find 8 of them as banks. Today, if you look at the top 10 companies on NASDAQ, market cap wise, 9 companies are non-banks. So that clearly shows where the world is heading. So now when you ask about India, yes, the ICICIs and Kotaks of the world are doing a great job, in my view, in sort of keeping up the pace. But I think when you talk to their customers, their expectations are still at a higher level than what banks have kept pace with. And that's where I see a need of these entities like Jupiter or BharatPay coming up, where either these companies will participate in the value chain in partnership, or they will go their independent path in going ahead and acquiring the licenses or applying for licenses. So I think that is the path which is going to happen. That being said, at no imagination I'm saying that ICICIs or Kotaks won't exist. They would exist. Today there are in India 100 plus banks do exist. It's just that the top 5 banks control maybe 40% market share and the rest of the banks control 60% market share. I think that dynamics may change, where the new set of banks which come in, they might also start controlling 20-30% of market share, which today the top banks or the rest of the banks control.
So you're saying there's going to be a swap of sorts?
I mean, that's what it looks like from a consumer's expectation and behavior standpoint. Because consumers today are looking for experience which is more personalized in banking, vis-a-vis one-size-fits-all approach. And second, the importance of service. I think today banks are ignoring that. I'll pose a simple question to you as a consumer. Like today, if I ask you, which is the best bank account in the country, what would be your answer?
I'm not going to answer that. Not on live television.
So see, this is what I was saying. So let me help you in that. So today we asked this question to more than 5,000 consumers, and to our surprise, the answer which came in: how does it matter? All banks are same. All products are same. All services are same. So go with bigger the better. So that was the answer we got. We asked another question, which is the best cab service provider? We got our answer. Which is the best food delivery service provider? We got the answer. Which is the best e-commerce platform? We got the answer. And we got the answers with 5 pointers. Why? Why this is better? Which is the feature they like? What is it they like? But when we asked the same question about banks, we did not get any pointer. So what that shows is that there's no brand affinity which consumer has towards their bank. And I think that is the part missing because of the experience and service, which is missing today in banking system.
Okay, so there are clearly, things missing which you're hoping to address. Jiten, it's always a pleasure talking to you. Thanks so much for joining us. Incidentally, of course, we're doing this interview a week after your launch, where you got 60,000 people in queue in just a matter of 6 days. But also on a day where UPI, of course, hit a record high. The resilience of UPI was, of course, to be seen during the second wave as well, when it clearly outperformed NEFT, RTGS, credit cards, all of that. But it did hit an all-time high. And over the next couple of weeks, we'll also be talking about the next UPI moment for fintech, and we hope to have you back then on the channel.
Sure, Nayantara. Thanks. Always pleasure talking to you. Thank you.